I came across this unusual story in a book that I'm reading, and I thought I would relate it here because it combines a lot of the sort of things that interest me. Weird dreams, strange coincidences, mental illness, and a horrible death. To give a bit of background, I want to talk briefly about the life of Walter Prince. He was born in 1863 in Maine, USA. From the age of 18, he became a pastor of an Episcopal church. Through his 20s and into his 30s, he continued his theological studies, but he also took a great interest in human psychology. In 1899, he gained a doctorate from Yale University. His doctoral thesis was on multiple personality disorders. His interest in multiple personalities led him into the world of parapsychology, that is, the study of psychic and other paranormal phenomena. Eventually, this interest led him to co-founding the Boston Society for Psychic Research, and he wrote numerous books on the subject of psychic phenomena. Although he was interested in the world of the paranormal, this wasn't a man prone to flights of fancy. His mind was analytical, skeptical. He even joined the Society of American Magicians and learned how sleight of hand tricks were performed just so that he could debunk psychic mediums. I could go deeper into his life because it's pretty interesting, but this is just a quick overview to lend some weight to the following account. The impression I get of Walter Prince is that he was open-minded about the paranormal, but he knew enough about human psychology to try and look for a rational explanation for things before jumping to any wild conclusions. On the night of November the 27th, 1917, Walter Prince retired to bed and had an extremely vivid dream which he later wrote down. I dreamed that I had in my hands a small paper with an order printed in red ink for the execution of the bearer, a woman. I did not seem to have any distinct notion of the reason for her condemnation, but it seemed that I inferred that it was for a political offence, and some thought of the French Revolution seemed faintly connected with it. The woman appeared to have voluntarily brought the order, and she expressed herself as willing to die if only I would hold her hand. I remember her looks quite well. She was slender, of the willowy type, had blonde hair, small girlish features, and was rather pretty. She sat down to die without any appearance of reluctance, seeming fully calm and resigned. It was not clear where we were, but she seemed to me to be in a chair. I should have thought her about 36. The light went out and it was dark. I could not tell how she was put to death, but I soon felt her hand grip my hand, and I knew that the deed was being done. And then I felt one hand of mine on the head of her hair, which was loose and severed from the body, and I felt the moisture of blood. Then the fingers of my other hand were caught in her teeth, and the mouth opened and shut several times as the teeth refastened on my hand. I was filled with the horror of the thought of a severed but living head. Here the dream faded out. When he awoke from the dream, he was gripped by how real it had seemed. He felt that it had some sort of deeper significance, so much so that he related the details of the dream to his wife and his secretary later that morning. 2 days later, Walter Prince picked up the Evening Telegram newspaper and read the headline, "Head Severed by Train as Woman Ends Her Life." The article told of a woman who, at around 11:15 p.m. on the 28th of November, had gone to the Long Island Railroad station at Hollis and laid down in front of a stationary train with her neck across one of the rails. As the train pulled away from the station, it very slowly rolled across her neck, decapitating the head from the body. The woman's name was Sarah Hand. A few months before the incident, she had lost her child. Since then, her mental health had deteriorated and she'd begun treatment at a mental institution. She had been on holiday leave from the hospital when, on the 27th of November, she had left home to visit her sister. She wasn't seen again until the following day, when her body was found on the tracks. Next to her corpse, they found a brand new butcher knife and cleaver. Most likely she'd intended to cut her own head off, but decided that the train would do a better job. Most strange of all, though, was the note found inside her handbag. It read, "Please stop all trains immediately. My head is on the track and will be run over by those steam engines and will prevent me from providing my condition. My head is alive and can see and talk, and I must get it to prove my case to the law. No one believed me when I said I would never die, and when my head was chopped off, I would still be alive. Everyone laughed and said I was crazy. So now I have proved this terrible life to all. Please have all the trains stopped to save my head from being cut in fragments. I need it to talk to prove my condition and have the doctor arrested for this terrible life he put me in." Just like the severed but living head in Walter Prince's dream, Sarah had developed the delusion that her head would continue living once it was cut from her body. There were other strange similarities between her death and Walter Prince's dream. The note in the handbag and the execution order that the dream woman had brought voluntarily, being willing to die. Also note
Yeah, but are they sure it was written in her handwriting? What if he did this in a dream or something, but really it was real life, like he was sleepwalking and he like killed this woman, put her on the tracks, like could have subdued her, put her on the tracks, tied her up or whatever, and then put a note in her pocket saying, "Oh, some stupid thing like, oh, my head's gonna talk to you and explain why I did this," type thing, just to divert attention, to be like, "Oh, it's completely suicide," you know? Because like a lot of these movie stars, like Matthew Perry, it was suicide by drowning because he was too drugged up and he just drowned in his own hot tub. A lot of these suicides, it's like, you know, I don't believe they're all suicides, but anyways.
the significance of hands in a dream. The request that Walter Prince holds the hand of the condemned girl and his hands on her head and in her mouth after the execution. Strange that the dead woman in real life would be called Sarah Hand. Another strange coincidence is that he'd had the dream in the early hours of the 28th of November, the same day that she'd lay down on the train tracks. Plus, Walter Prince was living in Flushing at the time, just a few miles away from the Hollis train station where Sarah Hand had taken her life. He was so amazed by the...
Wait, there was a place called Little Neck, Great Neck, Glen Head, and her head was cut off here. Like, what a coincidence. That's weird.
Taken her life. He was so amazed by the details in the newspaper that Walter Prince tracked down the woman's husband, and in January the following year he visited the house. He was shown pictures of Sarah. The face of the woman in the photographs was not the same as the woman from his dream, but other details were very similar. Sarah Hand had been slender and pretty and had dark blonde hair. She was 31 at the time of her death. He'd guessed the woman in his dream to be around 36 years old. So was all this just a strange coincidence, or was something else going on? In lucid dreams, I've sometimes walked around just looking at how everything was made up. In one dream I walked around a town and I noticed how each street or building was something from my memory, but they were joined together in a way that they weren't in real life. For example, I could be walking down a street near my childhood school and I would turn a corner and I'd be on a street where I went to work, even though in real life those locations were miles apart. On the flip side of that, in real life, I've sometimes visited a completely new place and had a strange sense of déjà vu, and then I'd realised that I'd dreamt of somewhere very similar in the past. This made me wonder, if dreams are stitched together from events that happen in our lives, could they also incorporate future events? Sigmund Freud had this idea of condensation in dreams. This means that certain symbols and figures that you see in your dreams are actually multiple thoughts and desires condensed into one image. For example, a man you meet in your dream might be your dad, your boss, your doctor, your teacher, all combined into one person representing some kind of male authority figure. The woman in Walter Prince's dream didn't have the same face as Sarah Hand, and he thought that she was dying for some political reason. Could this dream woman have been a condensation of multiple figures, past and future? Theoretical physicists like Carlo Rovelli have argued that time is just an illusion. Our brains perceive time as flowing in a straight line, but really this is just our way of making sense of things. Our brains sort sequences of time into past, present and future to try and make sense of things. Perhaps our dreaming brains have a way of bypassing this. But I've got to admit, I don't know enough about loop quantum gravity to make sense of his ideas. Let's just go with the most rational explanation and say that it was just a big coincidence. Isn't that creepy enough in itself? To dream of a woman being willingly decapitated and her head still being alive after it's been removed from her body. Then, just a few hours later, a few miles away, a real woman decapitates herself under the delusion that her head will still be alive after it's removed from her body. Remarkable and chilling whether you believe in the paranormal or not. And on that fence-sitting note, it seems like a good place to stop. I swear one of these days I'm going to finish a video just by going, I don't know, the end. But I've said it before, these kind of weird stories with no conclusive answer are the kind of thing that I enjoy covering. Stories that leave you thinking about them after you've finished are the kind of ones that stick in your memory. Hopefully this means you'll remember this video and come back to watch some more. Maybe. Let me know what you think in the comments. Eerie coincidence, strange premonition.
Yeah, this guy's really good. Shouted Hand. Yeah, really good storyteller, and well, it's not just stories, it's what really happened, but yeah, so definitely subscribe to him, and if you can, subscribe to me, and peace out.